January 2025. Norwegian sonar operators expect to find nothing but relics in the North Sea until they spot a World War II submarine profile at 180 feet.
A sonar scan just pulled up the image of a fully intact World War II submarine sitting 180 feet beneath the North Sea. And when researchers contacted every naval power in Europe, asking who it belonged to, every single one denied it was theirs. No country will claim this submarine. It does not appear in any military record ever written. But that is not what made the team go silent. When they sent cameras down to investigate the interior, what they found inside the hull broke every known rule of submarine engineering. A critical system, the one component no submarine can function without, was missing. Not destroyed, not corroded away over 80 years, removed deliberately. Someone gutted this submarine, erased its identity, and sank it in waters that have been surveyed for decades without anyone noticing it was there. The question is no longer what happened to this submarine. The question is what someone was trying to make sure no one ever found. The contact 3 months. Before anyone looked inside that hull, nobody knew this submarine existed. A Norwegian survey ship was running routine seabed, mapping off the coast in the summer of 2023, updating navigational charts the same way the crew had done for weeks. This stretch of the North Sea had been scanned dozens of times over 80 years. Every wreck, every rock, every feature of the bottom had been cataloged long ago. Then the sonar picked up a shape at roughly 300 meters offshore. Long, cylindrical, a conning tower rising from the midsection. Unmistakable, a submarine. The team marked the coordinates and kept working. Wrecks are common in these waters. The North Sea was a graveyard during the Second World War. One more submarine was not news. But when Chief Surveyor Thomas Dahl sat down to process the data back in port, his expression changed. He pulled up every wreck database available and cross-referenced known submarine losses in that sector. Nothing matched, not within 5 nautical miles, not one within 10. He contacted the Norwegian Coastal Administration, no record. The UK Hydrographic Office, nothing. Germany's Deutsches Schifffahrtsmuseum, the World Authority on German Naval Losses, no match. Here's the catch. Dahl later told colleagues he ran the search 4 separate times because he was certain he had entered the coordinates wrong. He hadn't. Every nation's answer was identical, not ours. And every submarine lost in the Second World War has supposedly been accounted for. Every single one. There is no such thing as an unknown World War II submarine. What the cameras would soon reveal inside that hull was about to make a record-keeping mystery look simple. Why this can't exist now? This is important. Because without understanding how obsessive wartime records actually were, the scale of what Dahl found doesn't register. Think of it this way. If you lose your car, there are records. AVIN number, registration, insurance, dealer logs. Now multiply that by 1,000, and you have roughly the paper trail for a single World War II submarine. The German Kriegsmarine built more than 1,150 U-boats. Everyone received a hull number, a commissioning date, a construction yard, a complete service record. When one was lost, the circumstances were investigated and filed. After the war, Allied intelligence spent years compiling captured German records into comprehensive databases. The British tracked the other side just as obsessively. Every contact logged, every attack documented, every kill investigated. And get this, of the 709 Type 7 U-boats commissioned by Germany, 694 were lost during the war. The remaining 15 were surrendered or scuttled. Every single fate documented, no exceptions. If this submarine was a Type 7, which its dimensions strongly suggested, it should have a hull number, a service record, and a loss report. It had none. Soviet, British, and American submarines were all ruled out by design and location. That left only one possibility: a German U-boat that, according to every archive on Earth, does not exist. If you're the kind of person who needs to know how a fully intact submarine can exist outside every record, hit subscribe, because the answer is stranger than the mystery. What the cameras found. The ROV descended through cold, dark water and found the submarine resting on the seabed, listing slightly to port. 70 years of marine growth covered the surfaces, but the hull was remarkably intact. The conning tower stood clear of sediment. Deck gun mounts were visible. The propeller shaft extended cleanly from the stern. Eric Lindgren, the marine surveyor who led the ROV operation, watched the footage in real time as the details emerged. The submarine measured 71.5 meters long with a beam of 6.2 meters, a Type WWII, the workhorse of the German Navy. But here's the deal. Every Type 5 IIC ever lost in the North Sea has already been found and identified. This one should not exist. The hull showed no torpedo holes, no depth charge craters, no combat damage at all. The conning tower matched late war modifications from after 1943, and the hull numbers that should have been painted prominently on the tower were missing entirely. On a submarine whose other surfaces remained well preserved, they had been deliberately removed or never applied. But none of that prepared the team for what came next. The ROV pushed through a damaged section of the outer hull and aimed its cameras into the battery compartment. On every World War II submarine ever built, this space held massive lead-acid cells, enormous banks that powered the electric motors for underwater propulsion. Without them, a submarine cannot dive. Period. The compartment was empty. Marine chemist Dr. Ingrid Solvang analyzed sediment samples from around the wreck and found lead levels near zero, completely inconsistent with a submarine that ever carried operational batteries. They hadn't corroded, they had been removed. Someone had pulled the one system that made this vessel a submarine, erased its identity, and sent it to the bottom of the ocean. The question was no longer just about missing records. It was about what someone had been trying to hide. The forensic trail. In early 2024, the team returned with equipment to make the wreck itself talk. An ROV fitted with a manipulator arm cut small steel samples from the pressure hull and sent them to laboratories. Dr. Katrin Brandt, a metallurgist at the Helmholtz Zentrum in Geesthacht, confirmed the steel was definitively German, composition matching submarines built at Deutsche Werke and Germania Werft in Kiel between 1943 and 1945. Manganese content, carbon levels, trace elements, all aligned perfectly. And get this, Brandt flagged something unexpected. The steel quality was significantly higher than typical for late war U-boats. By 1944, Germany was desperately short of high-grade materials. Late production submarines routinely used inferior steel. This submarine showed none of those compromises. Brandt described the quality as more consistent with 1942 production standards applied to a 1944 design, suggesting whoever commissioned this boat had access to strategic reserves unavailable to ordinary production lines. Inside the conning tower, the ROV found one more clue. 3 letters pressed into a corroded periscope mount. CZW, Carl Zeiss Werke, Germany's premier optical manufacturer. Zeiss kept records of every periscope produced, including serial numbers that could identify the exact submarine. But the serial number was completely gone. Only the manufacturer's mark remained. 3 weeks of forensic work produced a definitive profile, a German Type WWII, built 1943 to 1945, with anomalously high-quality steel, missing batteries, missing identity, and zero combat damage. But the name of this submarine was still a ghost. The answer was not going to come from the ocean floor. The file that changed everything in. February 2024, German naval historian Klaus Hoffmann was sitting in a research room at the Bundesarchiv in Freiburg, grinding through logistics files on fuel deliveries to Norwegian U-boat bases. Tedious work that rarely produces surprises. Then he turned a page and stopped. A single entry referenced the fuel allocation for submarine U3135. The designation fell within the standard Type 6 C numbering sequence. Hoffmann knew those sequences cold. U3135 was not in the official records. He checked twice, 3 times. He pulled up the master database of every U-boat ever commissioned. U3135 did not appear. He later told colleagues he sat staring at the entry with his coffee going cold, reading the line over and over, certain he was misunderstanding something. He wasn't. Now, this is important. Over the next 3 months, the team traced a paper trail across archives in 3 countries. U3135 had been commissioned in October 1944, not for combat, but for experimental snorkel testing, under a technical command division. Because it never went on an operational patrol, it was filed under testing records, not combat databases. When Allied forces captured German archives, they prioritized combat records. Experimental submarines ended up in separate collections that post-war researchers never searched. On April 28, 1945, 6 days before surrender, U-3135 received scuttling orders. The crew removed the batteries, painted over the hull numbers, towed the boat northwest off Norway, and sent her to the bottom. The coordinates matched the wreck to within 2 nautical miles. Every impossible detail collapsed into one clean answer. The empty batteries, the erased identity, the intact hull, the high-quality steel from a boat earmarked for special testing. All of it made perfect sense, once you knew where to look. The submarine hadn't vanished because records were destroyed. It vanished because records were misfiled. But if that sounds reassuring, consider what it actually means. What we missed, U-3135, didn't disappear because someone burned the evidence. It disappeared because someone in 1945 filed it under the wrong category. A system that made sense at the time, but rendered the boat invisible to every researcher for 78 years. The documents were always there. They were just not where anyone thought to look. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The sonar that found U-3135 was running a routine survey. The historian who identified it was researching fuel deliveries. Neither was looking for a missing submarine. The discovery was pure accident. How many other submarines sit in bureaucratic limbo right now? How many ships? How many entire operations exist in archives filed under categories no one thinks to search? We do not know. We cannot know. The archives are too vast, the filing systems too fragmented, and the ocean does not correct our mistakes. It holds them on the seafloor, silently, until someone finally asks the right question. U-3135 waited 78 years for someone to open the wrong folder and stumble across the truth. What else is still down there, misfiled and forgotten, waiting for an accident that might never come? Drop your answer in the comments. And subscribe with notifications on if you want to be here when we find the next one. Because if a 71-meter submarine can hide in plain sight for 8 decades, the real question isn't what we've found, it's what we haven't.